Okay, as it is now 5 o'clock by my computer, it's not we will commence this evening's meeting. Thank you for being in attendance. Apologies for this evening, obviously Mayor Ross and Councillor Dennis, and everyone else is in attendance. For those of you, especially new elected members who haven't had a meeting chaired by someone else other than the Mayor, just protocol just to refer to me as Deputy Mayor or the Chair and make sure that all questions are asked through me to our officers. Can I have everyone upstanding please for the opening prayer and the acknowledgement of country? Actually, sorry, before we do that, without live streaming, I just need to announce that please note that this meeting is being live streamed, recorded and published in accordance with the Council's live streaming and recording of public meeting policy. To those present in the gallery today, by attending a public meeting of the Council, you are consenting to your image, voice and comments being recorded and published. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded and their voice, image and comments will form part of the live stream and recording. Hopefully it works. Now, opening prayer. We gather to make decisions for our community. May we use only our best skills and judgment, keeping ourselves impartial and neutral as we consider the merits and pitfalls of each matter that is placed before us, and always act in accordance with what is best for our community and our fellow citizens. And our acknowledgement of country. We acknowledge and respect the traditional owners of the ancestral lands of the South East. We acknowledge elders past, present, and we respect the deep feelings of attachment and relationship of Aboriginal peoples to country. Thank you. Please be seated. Now, item 2 is elected members' declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest for this evening's meeting?
Yes, 17.2, which is there's a perceived, there may be a perceived conflict.
17.2. Thanks, Councillor Ross.
Sorry, Mayor.
Yep.
In one of my motions with notice, I actually do work for one of the businesses proposed.
No worries, Councillor Maguire. Thank you. Anything else? Good. All right. Item 3 is public forum, and we do have someone in the public forum who is willing to have a bit of a chat and answer some questions. Dan Hayes from Intuit, I'd like to stand up if you'd like.
I've been requested to come here just to see, or just to answer any questions anyone might have that we may be able to help with, just from the understanding of the way that this Telstra Tower offer has been made. I was first approached through the Tatiara Economic Development Committee, which I'm a member of, about this. And when we first heard about it, we as being into it, my first impression, and along with my brothers, who does a lot of work with me as well, was that, why is a big private company asking councils for what seemingly seems like a very small amount of money, and not an amount of money that would potentially stop a project like that. There was some of my responses was the reason for that is possibly above my pay grade, for political reasons, that they're looking for support from council, and that seems to be a way of filtering out who needs it and who doesn't. Maybe that's the case, maybe it isn't. We put a number of questions through the Tatiara Council at the time to ask Telstra. First one being really is, before you go and put any new towers out, what's going on with the existing network? Because despite being told to the contrary, there's, everyone's seeing a drop in signal. They're seeing, and that's the feedback we get. That's certainly what we see as well. So examples, we're driving from Naracoorte to Lucindale. For most of the year, you won't get a hold of call there, even with a phone booster. But when the field days kick in, you can talk pretty much all the way there, except for a very obvious place around pine trees where you'd expect the signal to drop. So there were questions like that asked, along with going to the offer that they've put forward was, are they doing it on the cheap? As in, are they using sectorised towers with fibre backhaul, which are your best in class? Or are they using the kind of towers that we use at Durgan, where they do put a big omni pole there, but put what's called omni antennas, or basically a very large broomstick antenna like you might see on the front of your vehicle. You know, your limit on that we see is sort of 5 k's before it starts to drop out. So we asked those questions, the responses that came back were they are actually doing that. So for the Tatiara, and that's the only one, I don't have the information on the Naracoorte one, but for the Tatiara, 3 out of the 4 were fibre backhaul, all were sectorised. The one that's not fibre backhaul was halfway up the Naracoorte, so that makes sense. You know, you don't have fibre there. So the coverage was going to be good. I put forward as well that this is about making phone calls, because the whole data thing through Telstra Mobile will, you know, it still does work for some families, but most people want more internet and they want more service. When I say service, if something goes wrong, who can they call? So from a data point of view, like realistically, home data, the horse is bolted for these towers. So this is about being able to talk on the phone, or people driving down the road, or in your paddock, and being able to get, if nothing else, the weather, or at most, you know, the kids can watch Netflix so they're not bugging the driver. So yeah, look, Telstra came back with all those responses, and like I was happy, but again, I was one of the first ones to ask that question, you know, private asking for some public money. In the end, regardless of everything else, and regardless of where you might live and whether you got signal or not, you know, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's $120,000, is that right, for 3 towers in this area, or ballpark figure. You know, these towers are about $1.5 million each, thereabouts, on average. $4.5 million, 120 grand to get seemingly something over the line for whatever reason that might be. For infrastructure that won't cost you a cent going forward. It's maintained by Telstra. It seems like an economic or a financial no-brainer to me, despite the fact that I was against it to start off with. There was something else, sorry. It's gone. I guess while I'm trying to think of that, if anyone had any questions that I might be able to answer from that point of view, then by all means. Oh, the other thing was I did map out the sites just for the Tatiara and Naracoorte, which were kind of our coverage area from a point of view of our service. And the areas they've picked, they're not mucking around. They have picked dead spots. They have picked areas that we get phone calls about a lot, that we drive through as well, and know that those are bad areas. So that was my other point, was Telstra have no obligation to do this. And as what we do with our internet, we can't go and install someone's internet out in the middle of nowhere for $100. We have to get some kind of money up front. We don't get that from the government. We get that from the subscriber themselves. Otherwise, economically, I'm mortgaging my house to so someone can have cheap internet. Telstra are the same. You know, it makes no financial sense at all to go and put a $1.5 million tower that will have ongoing labour and parts costs over the years, over the life of it. But whether there is still some force that makes them do this, I'd like to think that they're doing it out of the goodness of their heart. You know, it does seem to me that it's one of those things that will come up, and if it doesn't happen this time, I can't see why they would come back and have another go. The majority of it works in this district, and a few people and a few councils miss out, then they'll say, yeah, it worked in general, and then probably move to the next area that needs this kind of service. So that's my opinion. Yeah. If anyone's got any questions?
Any questions for Dan while he's here? Councillor Bundy?
Do you think that Telstra will pull the project if they don't get their 4% contribution from the Naracoorte Lucindale Council?
So that was the maths that I did as well, because 4%, if you did that across the whole project of 24 odd towers, it's about 1.8 million in council contributions that they're looking for from the various councils. So if you looked at it on the surface, just from a money point of view, you go, well, that's 1.25 towers, so we'll make it 2 towers out of 24. So perhaps they won't pull it. I imagine that if the Naracoorte Lucindale Council chooses not to go ahead, then if there were 2 towers that are going to be dropped, it'd probably be out of this area. What I don't know is how if that support is not given, then what does that impact further up the line as far as state and federal? One of the lines in here is, why local governments and what outcomes. And cost of the Commonwealth was a value of 10 points. So proposed solutions which cost less to the Commonwealth as a percentage of the cap will score higher than proposed solutions which cost more to the Commonwealth. The question I didn't have answered is, is the cost of the Commonwealth include the cost of council? I was thinking that was more on a federal level, but again, that's apart from me.
So you don't know?
From that point of view, I don't know.
When Telstra presented to council, we asked the question about why signal would drop out between Naracoorte and Lucindale when it previously didn't. As far as I'm aware, we haven't had a response to that question.
So I've had a response.
Yep, I'm curious
If I-
to. Yes,
I can
thank
give
you.
that.
Yep.
The response was that there was no known, so mine was between Lock Harbour and, which is where I live in Lucindale. So the response was there's no known issues in that area. They noted that I had a phone booster. I needed to make sure that that was configured correctly. We've done probably 200 of them. We've got a fair idea whether it's working or not. They noted that I changed phones. I needed to check my phone. It didn't matter whether it was my phone, my second phone, or other people's phones in the vehicle. We have the same issue. And I was also asked to check my antenna. My antenna was fine. I replaced it with new GME and there was little to no difference. So, I've used the analogy, I feel like the guy back in the 30s or whenever it was that was saying that there was a problem with lead in your petrol. Screaming from the rooftop saying there's something wrong, but getting told there's nothing wrong. There's something not right. And my letter to Nick McBride, who then put it to Telstra, was to ask that question. All we're looking for is an answer. We're not looking for, if it's part of the 3G roll out, removing 3G, and it's a power issue at the towers maybe, then so be it. There's a means to an end, then all good. But we're only going on what people are telling us, and everyone's telling us the same thing that you asked. So, yeah.
So down.
Yeah, with the move towards 5G, and that's purely a data lift from what I can understand. I mean, it's a lot more, like each G's got a different load area, capacity or whatever, and 5G is going much faster with data download, but you're going to have to be closer to your tower to pick up that download.
So 5G, as we know it in towns, you're correct. You've got to be quite close. But Telstra, and it was the first time I actually heard it in sort of from the horse's mouth, so to speak, that they're refarming the 3G band.
Yeah.
And so 3G works on the 850 megahertz, which has, as we know, a lot of carry. It can go a long way. There's not much capacity in there now. I don't think, possibly not due to overuse, maybe just it's getting wound back.
Yeah.
But it is still good for voice in general. The issue people have is you might have great 3G, but if your phone finds a sniff of 4G, it'll generally chase that.
Chase to it.
So the difference in regional areas is like 4GX was amazing when it first came out. When they refarm, or if they refarm 5G, or rebrand 5G and push voice and data over that 850 band, then that will be potentially a very, very good thing. But the frequencies we have in town, as soon as you get out of the town limits, 5G, you don't get it, despite what your phone might tell you.
Yeah, okay. So that doesn't overall that well. But and the other thing was the it escapes me a little bit, but there's a service provider requirement by government on the licence for a service to provide the community with adequate service. And I think that falls on Telstra that they need to be following what's recommended, even though it's pretty much a private company now since the sell-off of Telstra shares. But you still got to, like you said earlier on, there's a company that's returning. I think they're forecasting about $8.3 billion profit after costs and what it tax this year. It just seems a bit interesting that they're running around chasing money from outside. I mean, far be it for me to say they're saying that they're putting these towers in areas where it's passing traffic. There's not many people that live in that area, so their return on investment is not going to be that great. So they're trying to load shift cost.
Well, I mean, most of it seems to be funded by black spot funding, federal and state. So, again, if they're trying to put towers in there for whatever reason that they're giving or been given, then it makes sense that they're chasing money from somewhere. What doesn't make sense is why they need 4% or 5% out of council, which is from a dollar point of view, in my opinion, it's an insignificant amount almost to the cost of the project. So why does it have an impact? But again, that's getting outside of my jurisdiction, as Cameron pointed out, and that's a question that you guys get to ask. Just from a data point of view, I was misquoted on by one of the councillors out of the meeting at Bordertown that I'd said that in 3 years' time these will become obsolete. That wasn't what I said. What I said was in the next 3 years, from a data and voice point of view, with Starlink in the market already, and with Kuiper, which is the Amazon network, from a data point of view, they are game changers. And from a voice point of view, or at least a text point of view, it's not too far away where you can use your standard mobile phone and it will talk to one of these networks. So you can be in the middle of the Simpson Desert and get an emergency message out. We're a long way off voice, and we're a hell of a long way off amount of data from that. But data at houses and data out in paddocks, even for like farm management, IoT is the cliche that gets used, or the term that gets used. Starlink already putting satellites that have a Cat-M5, I think the term is, or the technology is. So on Telstra, they use it's a super low powered, high coverage technology that can get something back like a tank level.
Yep.
So all of that whole realm is just changing very, very quickly. But again, this is about voice. So
Thank you.
that's all right.
Any other questions? Yep, Councillor, sorry.
Dan, look, I'm sorry, I've had poor signal out of my property too, where I live, etc. And it's dropped from 3G full signal to 1 bar if I'm lucky with 4G in my house. And that would be great if we had answers to why this is happening. And I don't know that much about your business, but I think you're predominantly dealing with Telstra with a lot of your business. Can you then venture across and say, what do you know about Optus and the towers they're putting in, because they're not getting these subsidies by the government that I'm aware of? I mean, do you know much about the Optus situation, please?
So what I don't know is whether they've been involved in black spot funding before, and Optus ended up at Avenue. The issue I have, and look, it's great that you can get a tower and get phone signal out there. The problem with having 2 Telstra towers, as an example, and a black spot in the middle, is if you put an Optus tower in the middle, and when the fire's roaring from the neighbour's fence, and they've got an Optus phone and they're in Telstra coverage, they can't call you and tell you the fire's coming. You put one Optus tower in amongst other Telstra towers, you're creating Optus black spots. So again, an Optus tower at Avenue, when you talk about the infrastructure that whatever that costs, there's a reason Intuit doesn't put towers up that big. We can't afford them. They cost a lot of money, let alone power, let alone the technology on it. So there's not many people that live in Avenue, and most people that drive through Avenue would most likely be on Telstra. So I guess that's my take on it. It would be no point putting Optus towers in most of these spots, because most of those people that are in those areas are on Telstra now anyway. I mean, one of my employees couldn't drive out to my house at Lock Harbour without Optus dropping out on his handheld phone, which was up on the dash.
Grundy?
I've come from Willaleeka today, and there's a tower up there that's got a Telstra dish on it and an Optus dish. So if they're going to ask for public monies, wouldn't it be a good idea to at least have a model which caters for all providers?
Yeah, so I asked that question as well, and it was good to see that. Again, I haven't got all the information on this council area, but at Mundalla they're using the NBN tower. Finally to see a bit of infrastructure co-sharing. They did answer in here, and if I can get to the right point, bear with me. Roaming. Will there be any opportunity for roaming with other providers or some form of shared use of the towers? Yes, as per the RCP3 guidelines, we have included passive sharing provisions to support another provider, MNO, mobile network provider, for new sites. So they seem to have covered that. I mean, we as a provider, as an internet provider, can get access to Telstra infrastructure. The trouble is the red tape and the cost doesn't make it cost effective for us. But by all counts, you'd need to confirm it, but they've covered that. How that works into the black spot funding and what they're asking from yourselves is a question for them.
Any other question? Councillor Turner.
Dan, while I've got you here, this is part of this. I'm interested to know what you know about the upgrades that have happened at that big tower near the golf club, because over a number of weeks there were people there 7 days a week, and the infrastructure sitting on that tower looks like it's doubled or tripled. Is that anything to do with this particular, or is it something to do with 5G, or there's a lot of infrastructure up there?
Yeah, I haven't seen the golf course one. What I do know is that they were doing the same thing at Lucindale. Apsley and Kybe, they're all radio linked and NBN towers. So as far as I understood, it's part of the NBN upgrade, so they're increasing capacity and increasing range, so you can be further away. At the moment, the limit's about 14 kilometres. I would anticipate, but I don't know categorically that it was that, but we knew about it because we were getting phone calls. They drop it out on Saturday morning, and they bring it back up on Saturday night, Saturday afternoon, and then the same thing Sunday, but we never knew about it from an official source.
Just a question too, that you mentioned NBN, or I'm assuming Netflix type stuff. Does that increase the voice, or is it more specifically for internet, if that sort of infrastructure upgrade? So what you're saying is that would likely be more powerful, cover more distance. Would that also give you voice as well as data?
No. Voice over that technology is only via Wi-Fi calling, which is that when that came out, that was an absolute game changer. Where it works extremely well is when there's no other phone signal around. Your phone just leaves the phone towers alone and just focuses on the data. So for station country, it's fantastic. Down Cullandale Road, fantastic. But when you're in and around areas that have some form of coverage, Wi-Fi calling is difficult, or not as good, I should say. When people ask us about it, they ask us whether they should get a phone booster, which is a $2,000 option. We say, try your internet first, because that will cost you nothing. If that doesn't work, then you look at phone boosters.
Thank you.
No questions? Thanks very much for your time, Dan. Thanks for all that information.
Thank you. And feel free to give us a call at the office if anyone's got any other questions outside the meeting.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. So we have item 4, which we have no petitions or deputations. Item 5 is confirmation of council minutes. Can I have a mover that the minutes from council meeting held on the 23rd of May and special council meeting on the 7th of June are taken as read and confirmed as an accurate record of proceedings of the meeting? Can I have a mover, Councillor Ross, and a seconder, Councillor Turner? All those in favour? Those against, carried. Item 6, matters laid on the table from previous meeting. There are none. Item 7 is the Mayor's report. Mayor Ross has done a report there as he is away. Any questions, we can obviously ask him when he's back. I'm assuming everyone's happy with that report. Can I have a mover that the Mayor's report is received? Councillor Downwood and Councillor Goodman seconded. Everyone in favour? Carried. Thank you. Item 8, elected members' reports. Do I have any elected members' reports? Councillor Grundy.
Thank you. Just regarding the NRLE, we had an NRLE meeting here recently, and briefly the outcome of that has been that the income to date has been about 76% of budget, while the expenditure sits at about 63%. Our new projects are well and truly underway, and I'm sure that Mr Willsmore will give a far more detailed report on how that's progressing and our timelines in item 10 coming along.
Councillor Turner.
Thank you. This month I attended the Naracoorte Business Association meeting, which was held at the Dartmoor Homestead B&B. Noted that the AGM is coming up on Wednesday, July 12th, 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. at the Town Hall, so they've sent invitations out, and they also took the opportunity at that meeting to present the draft strategic plan, which had been approved by Council. We haven't published it, to the Business Association, which was well received, and it was a suggestion that that strategic plan could be presented at the Business Association AGM, and they asked if I was prepared to do it. I said yes, I would, but I'd also ask if Mayor Ross was prepared to do it, or if you felt someone else would be better at presenting it. But I think that would be a good opportunity to present that, if you feel comfortable with that. Councillor Ross and myself attended the Naracoorte High School yesterday for the Year 10 presentations. It's the pathway to, you might talk a little bit more about that yourself. I'll let you talk about that if you like, Councillor Ross, because I'll talk about something else. I took the opportunity yesterday also to go to Mount Gambier. There was a lunch hosted by the Regional Development Board, because Tony Passon had invited the Shadow Treasurer, Angus Taylor, to come to Mount Gambier or come to the region and have a visit, which was quite good. And the room, that particular setting, he'd met with business people and other people during the course of the day, but that particular setting had the mayors from the Limestone Coast, as well as representation from Group Training, GTE, and the RDA board. And it was a good discussion, so I'll just mention some of the discussion points. One of them was obviously housing and the shortage of housing, in particular new but also rental properties. And they were looking for solutions, and I did pose a possible solution that Angus Taylor and others thought was quite good and would probably take up, and it created a good conversation. Simplistic form, the solution was to free up what I call empty properties, or properties that were converted from full rentals to short-term rentals, probably as a result of the overreach from government during COVID, where the tenant actually had rights over the landlord, and such things as rents were capped. You couldn't kick a tenant out even if you had your house. You lost your house yourself during COVID. And rental assistance was paid to the tenant. They still didn't pay rent. It wasn't paid back to the landlord. So consequently, and this was written up well in the Australian, consequently a lot of people who had a rental property at the end of COVID and they could get out of this thought, I'm getting out of this because it's too hard, and I'll take that full-time rental and I'll convert it into an Airbnb or a part-time rental. This created a significant discussion, including Mayor who represents Port Macdonald, Robe, and it was seen quite obvious in this region, and it was suggested that there is perhaps hundreds of thousands of houses around Australia that are empty. And even Taylor Angus mentioned himself once he caught under the idea that he's got a friend or a neighbour in Goulburn where he comes from. He's got several houses and 2 of them are empty, and he said, why aren't you renting them? He said, it's just too hard. So anyway, I suggested, I won't go into the details, but I'll work through it a bit further. Basically, some sort of tax incentive that makes that more favourable for a landlord to actually go back into releasing an empty property. There's a lot of empty properties around Australia, to make it a full lease property, which would be, as they described it, some low-hanging fruit that would be a short-term fix. So that it's something like creating a tax incentive program for 5 years. So you would maybe get a tax break for 5 years for the mum and dad type investor if you leased a home and had it for rental, and that would give time for the country to build stock up in new homes to create the problem. Anyway, that idea was well discussed, and it came on to some other ideas about the housing shortage in the Limestone Coast. The Tatiara Mayor in particular noted the significant housing shortage that they have up in that region, and also noted that the council had decided to purchase land to become a developer themselves. They purchased a number of blocks for commercial as well as residential. I think it's about 40 residential blocks. With the view to if they could at least break even, it would help alleviate some of the problems. And their expected time frame to sell the blocks was 2 years. And within 6 months, the industrial estate was sold, and most of the development or most of the land was sold that they had for residential as well. However, they are restricted with the basic essentials like water. They haven't got enough potable water, which is drinkable water. And SA Water are looking at some big pipeline of 40-something million, to get water in that region. So that's a problem for them. And that highlighted a conversation around the table about other areas. And basically Angus Taylor said, well, what would you need from federal government? And assistance with the basics like road infrastructure, sewage and water infrastructure would be enough. I didn't mention how Naracoorte was probably more fortunate with its access to water, sewage and climate and everything else. But it was interesting to note that the councils that are struggling the most are working the hardest, and they're up against, problems that are outside of their control that should really be dealt with by state and federal governments in terms of basic infrastructure. Another topic was discussed, GT group training, which have about 250 apprentices in the region, raised the point that the pathway for apprentices through school is still not right. So if you've got a child in school and that really probably doesn't like the academic side, that would be good in the trade side or apprenticeship side, is still an issue. The question was asked, at what age can a child take on that role? And at age 15 you can do it part-time, so as part of your schooling, but probably from age 16 you could do it further. So again, there was a discussion around the room and it was agreed by Tony Passon, Angus Taylor and others that the whole education piece needs to be re-looked at. And if you think about it, if you're advising your child or your grandchild, you'd probably say look for a career where AI can't replace you, because it does make things like plumbing and trades and that sort of stuff a bit more sexy than perhaps going to university and getting a degree in something that AI will take away from you. Migrant workers in the region was also discussed, and that they gave good feedback to Angus Taylor about some of the issues there. And the other question was asked in the room, what about interest rates and what about the cost of living and energy? So to Angus Taylor, probably put it fairly simple, his opinion on interest rates was that with the current policy settings from the federal government, he sees interest rates will continue to rise, and at some point in the near future, whatever that looks like, depending on how much they rise and how hard we fall, they will come down, and they'll probably come down at a significant rate as well. His opinion, and if you heard him on the ABC radio today, the government does have some levers to pull, but they're not pulling, and their policy settings are probably not attractive to reduce inflation. Therefore, that's why the RBA has only got one lever to pull, and is pulling the interest rate lever. And the last question was asked, what about energy? And the Shadow Treasurer used to be the Minister for Energy. I'm not saying he didn't sign up to Net 50 either, but basically he said the only way to solve energy price or to bring energy prices down is to increase supply. And if you read, what's happening around the nation, supply has been restricted, so no one's opening up new gas. And someone asked the question, what do you think it would be? Do you think we'll ever see more coal brought into the Australian market? Pretty much he said no, because no state government, even though Queensland relies on coal, no state government has, and at the current federal government as well, has an appetite for that industry. So his opinion was we do need to actually have a lot more of what you'd call available energy to transition to where we want to go, which means probably opening up more gas and looking at other areas of energy that are not necessarily solar and wind. Interesting, he made a comment that the Hydro 2.0 scheme actually does make money, and it makes money on the fact that energy prices have gone up significantly, probably 50% since it was developed, but there is so much free energy during the day that goes nowhere, that they can get access to free energy to pump water up the hill, to pump it back down to create energy. So he was of the opinion that would work, and that was it. But it was I think his visit to the region is very positive, and he's a possible future treasurer for the country. And the work that he and Tony Passon did in getting him to understand this region, I think, is really significant. Because he does come from Goulburn, which, as he said, is a very similar region to the Limestone Coast. Does have an appreciation for it. Comes from a rural farm. He'd be potentially marking his lambs too if he wasn't working in Parliament. So I thought it was a good opportunity for this region to be showcased. But I think from the conversations that I heard, actually some really good feedback that you could take back to Canberra.
Thanks, Councillor Turner. Councillor Goodman?
Thank you. On the 29th of May, I attended the Francis Progress Association meeting at Francis. I was really impressed with the ideas and conversation that they are having and the work that they are doing to prepare themselves and the community for the review of the town master plan. the way that they are engaging with their community and being forward-thinking, so I commend their work to Council. On the 5th of June, along with Councillor Ireland, I attended the Lucindale Community Economic Development Board, or LINC, meeting. They also are doing quite a lot of work around that, and they currently have a particular focus on trying to develop a community hub that could cater for lots of different community activities, and they're also working hard on identifying and progressing community art projects along the lines of the wall murals that were identified through the Musgrave Avenue walk around. And on the 16th of June, along with 6 other councillors, I participated in the council bus tour of the rural roads, and I'd like to thank Mr Willsmore for his time in organising that. I think it was really beneficial to be able to ask questions and understand the processes and protocol that go into the road maintenance and our road network, and I think it puts us in a really good position for engaging with strategic direction.
Councillor.
Yeah, I attended a couple of meetings in the last month. The first one was the CT Trust. We had a CT Trust meeting last week. It was more there to thank a retiring member, Georgie Nolan, who's finishing, who's our chair. And we've got a couple of new members. We've got Angela Willsmore, who's come on board, and Andrea Wilski has come on board as well. So he's part of it through the NAHAC there. Just a bit of a follow on. Yeah, we've commissioned a new CT machine, which has started. That's it's an upgrade, well and truly on what we've had before, and also includes calcium scoring, which is just another add-on, which is pretty good. So, and with Councillor Turner, yes, attended the Naracoorte High School yesterday. So it's the first 2 presentation days they've got for their Year 10 students. So they're just doing some problem-based learning. So they've been basically given the task of identifying an industry issue, a need or a problem, and to try and produce a solution. So we listened to 8 different presentations yesterday. They were all focused on business opportunities, so and that was quite broad. So it was pretty interesting to listen to. So ranges from using from a chill zone type sort of business or enterprise, amusement, to try to engage the kids and people in the community. There was clothing businesses, food businesses. There was a focus on a sports hub or centre, which was pretty good. There was a cinema, as in upgrading the cinema. So, but the other one, which is quite interesting, which alludes to Darren's discussion, was a study hub. So obviously the kids are recognising a hole in the system in regards to engaging children that are students who are disengaged. So that was quite an interesting one to listen to. So and yeah, probably got some merit too. So, but yeah, other than that, yes, I'd just like to follow on from Councillor Goodman in regards to the bus tour. It was very well done. So thank you, Daniel. So all good.
Councillor Ross. Anyone else? Councillor Arnold.
Thank you. Sorry, this is the longest elected members' report we've ever had. I think this is live streaming this course.
Everyone's been out and about. It's lovely.
Oh, look, I'll just quickly, the LINC meeting in Lucindale, sorry. Councillor Goodman's already touched on it. Very switched on group of people with nothing but positives for the welfare of their town on their agenda. Looking into brightening the town with murals, as you touched on, and concerns over the future of the medical hub, just a couple of things that were brought up on the evening. That was on the 5th of June. On the 14th of June, I attended a Pinkerton Palm, or PPH&S, held a very informative session in the town hall for all interested parties, not just their own clients. EID information, carbon footprint, animal health, farm finance and cyber security by our speaker tonight, Dan Hayes, which was very enlightening, and it was fantastic to see local businesses help out with information like this. 16th of June, the bus trip that was touched on. Thanks again, Mr Willsmore. Looking at the different types of roads, these roads are covered in our asset management plans, and we need to make sure they meet the requirements of residential or business rate payers, and it was great to see the majority of elected members there on that day. I really got a lot from that. 22nd of June, attended by invitation an evening in the town hall by the Limestone Coast Multicultural Network for a Refugee Week event. We had short films and presentations by members of our community about their life migrating to Australia with more than just significant hurdles they faced leaving their country, and also here in Australia too. bit of a personal note here, but it was fantastic to be reunited with a workmate and friend, Hamad Kazard, who migrated 10 years ago, and proud that one of the first places of employment was with my business. He spent many years without his wife and children before they were able to join him here in Australia, so I was kind of a bit chuffed about that. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Arndt. I myself attended the Art Gallery biggest morning tea on June the 6th, and also as Mayor Ross couldn't attend, I attended on behalf of Council the Naracoorte Lions changeover dinner for the incoming President Norm Somerville and outgoing President Malcolm McEachran, which was a really nice evening. And also on Friday, also attended the SA Refugee Week all last week, and the theme was Finding Freedom. It's a celebration of refugees. It's even a bit of an eye-opener, the talks and the short films that were there. You kind of forget you've got migrants and you've got refugees that have come out on boats and the horrendous circumstances that they've come out here, and it was absolutely lovely. It was a really good audience. The Migrant Resource Centre did a really good job of putting on that event on Friday night. Also, I'm sure everyone's aware, but Naracoorte and Lucindale have both been nominated for Ag Town of the Year. There are 49 or 47 South Australian towns nominated. Both Naracoorte and Lucindale are nominated, which is fabulous to see. Just a reminder, voting closes tomorrow night at 5 p.m. There is a top 10 towns that are selected from after voting closes tomorrow night, so make sure you get on and vote for our towns in the Ag Town of the Year, which I think is awesome. And thank you for all your reports. Great to see everyone's been so proactive in the community over the last month. I will go to item 9, which is the Chief Executive Officer's report. Hand over to Mr. Smart.
Thank you for that. First item is the South Australian Regional Organisation of Councils, otherwise known as SAROC. So for new elected members in particular, it's a committee that sits under the LGA, represents regional councils only, so which in my report 47 local governments, the majority of the 68 is represented through this committee. They are there to advocate and support regional councils' collective voice up to state and federal government and to other sectors. SAROC have no power over individual, same as LGA, they don't have any power over individual councils. We still get to make our own decisions on any item of business in front of us. So they annually put out their annual business plan, and it's a summary of ideas that have come from the various SAROC members, just seeking feedback on what are our priorities from what they've put out. So I've put the draft response in there for your considerations rather than coming with a blank page. And I've tried to utilise our recently adopted strategic plan to provide some direction and consensus with that. But I'm happy to take questions or otherwise on it to the responses I've provided. Recommendation, subject to any edits, is that we endorse what I've put as presented and provide that feedback, but happy to take questions, comments or otherwise.
Any questions for CEO in regards to that one? No.
So do you want to do that recommendation? Here you go.
Someone like to move that Council provides feedback to the SA Regional Organisation of Councils on their draft SAROC 2023-24 annual business plan as presented. Can I have a mover for that, please? Councillor Turner and a seconder. Councillor Ross. All those in favour? All those against? Carried.
Thank you. Very important item, annual leave request for myself. So as per my employment agreement, you need to approve that leave above 1 week. So I'm applying for a couple of weeks leave through July. So again, a recommendation that be approved. Do that now if you like. If you don't want me to go and leave.
Someone like to move that the CEO has a holiday from the 10th to the 21st of July 23 as per CEO employment agreement. So I move that. Councillor Grundy and Councillor Goodman second. All those in favour? Carried. We'll watch out here.
And, yeah, I won't with Josie's new appointment as Manager Engagement Community, I won't put in her as Acting CEO yet. I'll give her a bit of a break. Most likely be a blend of Mr Willsmore and Mr McCrosty will share the acting in that period. Third item is Joint Council's key worker housing project, and probably add some thoughts to Councillor Turner's summary. So that's coming. I've got the final feasibility report, only hit my desk last night, so I haven't actually had time to go through that. Four councils will work through that initially, and then that will come back to council hopefully July or August to consider what position and what actions we can collectively take. Probably to mirror your thoughts, probably the key aims for our council is try to access state or federal government to funding to help with the civil infrastructure. Given that we haven't got land where some other councils have, we'd have to partner with private sector to enable that to be done. So that's included in our project. As it's within the Mayor's report and mine, that we also met with Nick McBride a couple of weeks ago, where potentially funding is available within his electorate. There's some indications that Tatiara will get a greater share, will get some share, but myself and Tatiara met with Renewal SA Friday in Watertown. They were unaware of that funding, so it's again left hand talking to the right hand, so we'll confirm some details on that. I think one of our challenges is the various government models look at affordable and social housing, whereas from our council perspective we're looking at just housing. So we need more housing stock. We don't need social housing in this town. We need probably an element of some affordable housing, which means 75% of market rental. So our challenge is to provide just more housing stock, hopefully to even out the market and to have more available for purchase and rental. So it doesn't tend to fit with the various business models that the state then look at. So our challenge is to change their thinking to provide solutions, whether that's a partnership with local government, community housing people or private sector. So we've got a couple of good opportunities in Naracoorte where the owners of land either will or are subdividing, and then the ability to build on that. Again, the upfront cost of what generally limits that subdivision and progression. So if we can get funding to ease that burden, I think that can get a long way to providing some of our solutions. So happy to take questions on that. Other meetings and activities there for your information and questions. We've had a couple of catch-ups on the NRLE sheep EID with the announcement that there was 75% funding coming to us and other councils. We're still haven't got clarity what that 75% actually means. So whether it's 75% of government estimates or 75% of our actual costs. So we're actually asking those questions with no answers yet. I've got a dinner tomorrow night with the CEO of PIRSA, so those same questions will go to that meeting as well. But we'll keep particularly in our NRLE board and council informed as we know. Happy to take questions.
Questions? Alrighty, item 10, key projects. Report there as stated. Mr. Willsmore?
Thank you. I just wish to add, since writing this report, site prep and clearances occurred at the Naracoorte Cemetery, so that project, and also the Market Square playground replacement. And also, as Councillor Grundy touched on, NRLE works progressing fairly well. The roof's practically complete, the yard's following through. The contractor there has done a good job picking up some time from some of the delays through the roof works. And as you can see in the photos provided, 2 of the ramps have been installed, ready for changeover into our second stage. So it's quite an impressive area. The roof's over 7,000 square metres of additional coverage. So I encourage members to attend the site and have a look, or contact myself or Lyndon and we can give you a tour. But it's quite impressive, the scale of the works that are being undertaken out there.
Any questions? That's just for members' information. Item 11 is the finance reports. Ms. Edmonds.
Just further to the report, since that's been prepared, we've had a couple of significant things. The NRLE loan of 1.52 was drawn down on the 15th of June, so we've set that up into the NRLE department. Also on Monday the 19th of June, since speaking about the payment in advance of the financial assistance grants, we've had notification that what we thought was going to be no payment this year is now 100% of the 23-24 payment. So we've only had notification, we've only got 3 days to go and we haven't seen it yet, so all being well, we'll expect that in the next few days. That doesn't change the next year budget side of things, it's more about the reporting side. So happy to take any questions.
Any questions, Ms. Edmonds? Excellent, thank you very much. That is for members' information. Right, we're going to item 12, minutes of recommendations from council committees. We're at 12.1 is the Naracoorte Regional Livestock Exchange Board. We have minutes there and we have a recommendation that the minutes of the Naracoorte Regional Livestock Exchange Board meeting held on the 31st of May 2023 are received and noted. Can I have a mover? Councillor Grundy. Seconder, Councillor Ireland. Anyone like to speak to that? All those in favour? Carried. And the next recommendation that the Naracoorte Regional Livestock Exchange Financial Report to the 25th of May 2023 is noted and referred to the Audit and Risk Committee for its consideration. Can I have a mover for that one? Councillor Grundy and a seconder, Councillor Goodman. All those in favour? Carried. Item 12.2, Audit and Risk Committee. Minutes there, and we have a recommendation that the minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee meeting 5th of June 2023 are taken as read and confirmed as an accurate record of proceedings of the meeting. Can I have a mover? Councillor Ross and a seconder, Councillor Turner. Anyone would like to speak to that, Councillor Ross?
Just want to quickly touch on, we had in our, the follow-on, I suppose, of our special meeting we had where we talked about the interest rates and the loan for the NRLE. That topic went for about 40 minutes, I reckon, so during the special meeting. So just thought I'd give you some, and where it was bandied around, you know, interest rates in regards to loan terms and what time we fixed the loan for. Well, we put it to the audit committee with our expertise of a couple of accountants and a lawyer, and you can just take comfort in the discussion. Probably lasted about a minute, so which is good. So basically, they support us looking at the 15 years for the loan term, which was never really in the discussion in regards to anything different there. But they categorically agreed 5 years fixed is the maximum. So that's what their thoughts were, and there was even discussion there of potentially earlier than that. There was even a suggestion of why not variable as well. So just thought, well, we can take comfort in knowing that the decision we've made was also supported by some people in there. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions, Councillor Turner?
It's probably worthy to note that question was asked of them without them knowing what the council had decided, so it was a bit of a split-second response that confirmed that the decision council made was the correct one. So it was asked without them knowing it. So it was what would you do in this situation in fixed and variable? So it was confirmation.
Excellent. Any other questions? We've got a mover and a seconder. Everybody in favour? Carried. And the next recommendation is that the Audit and Risk Committee notes the increase in forecast cash balance as at 30th June 2023. Can I get a mover for that one? Yes, Councillor Turner, seconder, Councillor Ross. And all those in favour? Carried. Okay, and the next one. That the reports relating to the performance of the Naracoorte Regional Livestock Exchange as of the 31st of May 2023 are received and noted. Can I get a mover for that one? Councillor Grundy. Councillor Ross. All those in favour? Carried. Is that what's come from there? So, yeah.
That's
And the last one there, the budget review for year ending 30 June 2023 as at 30th of April 2023 is noted. Can I get a move for that one, please? Councillor Turner, Councillor Ross, all those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. Rightio. Item 13, reports for decisions. 13.1, the adoption of the annual business plan budget 2023-24 and declaration of rates 2023-2024. We've obviously had our meetings. We've had 2 briefing sessions, Miss Evans, 2 special meetings. Obviously, our budget has gone out to community consultation. This has been in the works since March. The report is there. Do you want to speak to that, Ms. Evans?
Thank you. Probably the only thing worth pointing out which was written into the report is that closer to the 30th of June, we do a recapture of the total capital value that comes back from the Valuer General. So we re-estimated the rate of the dollar as at the 16th of June. So I'm guessing it's probably just more an information source rather than you've compared. There was a slight reduction again in the rate in the dollar, but we're talking 0.001%. So very minimal, but there was an extra $28 million or $29 million in capital value just within that short period of time. So at that point, we technically close off the books, and that's where we do the rating moving forward. So that's probably the only thing in addition that was worth mentioning.
Has anyone got any questions, Miss Edmonds, on that one? Councillor Ross.
It's a broad question, so through the chair, through the staff. So with the whole process, with the budget process we've gone through, has there been any specific requests from elected members for roads, upgrades and renewals or similar that weren't already scheduled on the program that we had?
Yes, that.
Certainly not that I'm aware of. It's usually a departmental or a management thing that if there is a request that comes through that I do see it eventually, regardless of whether we act on it or not. So not that I'm aware of.
No worries. So the recommendation as there, pursuant with the Local Government Act 1999, that the draft annual business plan for 2023-2024 is adopted. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Ross and a seconder. Councillor Maguire. All those in favour? Carried.
Madam Chair, can I call a division too, please?
Councillor Ross has called a division. So,
Favour, stand.
yep. Those in favour, can you please stand so Ms Collins can record everyone's names. Yeah, right. You like the handwriting? Your lovely handwriting? Good. Excellent, thank you. Everyone be seated. And the next part is obviously the rates, which I'm not going to read out all of that. I'm sure I'll put you all to sleep, and I'm sure everyone's read it. I just lost my bit on my page. So the recommendation is there. Do I have a mover? Councillor Maguire, second to Councillor Ross. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Beautiful. 13.2, Naracoorte Town Centre Rejuvenation Plan. Obviously, I will hand over to Mr McCrosty. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. As the report states, Council held the information session back in May in regards to the business owners and operators. The just shy of 20 attended. The information session was constructive, and as illustrated in the report, there was about 13 recommendations to be added to the Rejuve plan. Some of those of which have already been captured in the previous Rejuve plan. Probably the most noticeable one that will make the significant change in the Rejuve plan will be the request to maintain Ormerod Street as a two-way street. So the recommendation is that council will now go away and update and revise the Rejuve plan and then report back to council at a future meeting.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. McCrosty. Any questions for Mr. McCrosty? The recommendation is there that council, 1, acknowledge feedback from the business sector on the review of the Naracoorte Town Centre Rejuvenation Plan, and 2, undertakes a review of the Naracoorte Town Centre Rejuvenation Plan to reflect the feedback received by the business sector and update the plan for council endorsement. Do I have a mover? Councillor Turner and a seconder. Councillor Goodman. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Q. Yes.
Can I just make a comment for the record that I noted that I was really impressed with the way that Mr. McCrosty conducted that meeting and chaired it. I thought it's not an easy room when you've got business owners from several streets and people with lots of different agendas, and I thought it was conducted very well. So, and the outcomes were probably a result of how well the meeting was run. So, congratulations.
I agree with that. Well done.
Item 13.3, which is the Botanical Working Group. We obviously spoke about this. Was that the SAP meeting we spoke about?
Thank you. Yes, we received 2 nominations by the closing date of Vanita Bater and Andrew Hutchison. So both were previous quite active members of the committee, the previous working group, sorry. So we're recommending both of those community members accepted and appointed onto the Botanical Working Group.
Any questions? No. Can I please have a mover that Vanita Bader and Andrew Hutchison are appointed to the Botanical Working Group until November 2024? Councillor Goodman, Councillor Downward seconded. All those in favour? Carried. 13.4, which is the Matners Road upgrade.
Thank you. Council's been approached by a landowner who's recently purchased some land requesting we upgrade a unmade road reserve to provide him access to his property. We've discussed the road network extension and upgrade policy with him, and he's provided the attached request for council's assistance to upgrade the road. So I've discussed with him about the current policy and how it doesn't meet community benefit, and made the recommendation that the road is not upgraded, and the applicant is advised that they would need to meet all costs for the constructing access to the property.
Any questions on that one? So can I get a mover that the extension of the Matners Road is not upgraded and the applicant is advised they would need to meet all costs with constructing access to the property? Can I get a mover for that recommendation? Do I have a mover? Councillor Maguire and a seconder. Councillor Goodman. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Item 13.5 is the Naracoorte Creek weirs. Mr. Willsmore again.
Thank you. As members will be aware, these weirs have been a fairly long drawn out process. We've now don't need to provide the safe fish passage. Should change that. So there's been various discussions about whether the earth weirs are the preferred design. The earth weirs are based on the previously endorsed creek working group of providing amenity to the creek. Various members have discussed whether concrete precast drop weirs or alternate options could be an option. So seeking direction from from their members whether they want to continue with and finalise the endorsed weir design or seek alternate designs.
Councillor Grundy?
I'd like to move the second recommendation, please, and I'm happy to speak to it if it gets seconded.
Second one, Councillor Ross. Councillor Grundy?
Thank you. As I've alluded to previously, a lot of members of the public are concerned that if the Naracoorte Creek in this particular area is overly blocked up with weirs and whatnot, it could lead to problems with flooding and what have you. And I think that this alternate design potentially will give us a lot more flexibility with allowing the creek to flow, as well as flush as far as debris and sand which would build up and that sort of thing. So I think on the face of it, it looks like probably a better alternative. But I guess if we ask the council to prepare a report, we'll find out in due course.
Okay, any questions? So the recommendation is there that the alternate designs are undertaken based on repairing existing concrete weirs and precast drop-down weirs. Everyone in favour? Carried. Item 13.6, the lease for the Naracoorte Aerodrome, Naracoorte Aero Club hangars 13 and 14. There's a report there. Miss Edmonds, did you want to?
Just particularly to give new elected members a bit of a briefing on the aerodrome, we lease the parcel of land under infrastructure that has been developed by the hangar owners. So hence we look for land leases with the parcels. As far as the council report goes, we provide details of transfer of ownership or new constructions. In these situations, it's a simple renewal or a passing on to another family member. This report and the next report for the Naracoorte Aero Club are very similar as far as the lease documentation goes. Yes, if you've got any queries about it. As far as the land lease goes, it's a very minimal charge per annum, as well as we charge a user fee based on the number of aircraft that they have at the aerodrome. So any questions, happy to answer them.
Are there any questions in relation to that one? No, so the recommendation is there. There's obviously part 1 and part 2. Do I have a mover? Councillor Downwood, Councillor Rayner second. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Again, 13.7, the lease of the Naracoorte Aerodrome, Hangar 17 and Hangar 16. As Ms Edmonds has pointed out, I'm assuming it's the same. Is there any questions for Ms Edmonds on that one? Again, the recommendation is there as written. Do I have a mover for that recommendation? Councillor Downwood, Councillor Rayner. All those in favour? Carried. Item 13.8 is the lease of the Naracoorte Regional Cultural Trust. There's a report there. Ms Edmonds, you need to speak that one.
Yes, just happy to also make mention with this one, as we've heard from Jeanette Vine and Robin Shinkle, we're all very familiar with their request as far as renewing it at this stage, given that Kay Hole has stepped back from her role. The only other thing worth mentioning is we have a dual maintenance list with some of these buildings, this being one of them, and we did do a consultation process as far as that goes. So happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions, Ms Edmonds? Councillor Grundy?
Yes, Ms Edmonds. This is more of a technical issue, happy with the concept and that sort of thing, but am I right in saying that the lease fee is nil? And I think the lease agreement goes on to say that the lessee is entitled to sublet on a commercial basis to third parties. I just wondered if that was a bit unusual, given the nature of the lessor-lessee arrangement. In other words, the council and the cultural trust. That's a general question, if I've got that right.
So Yes, we don't charge a lease fee. I do believe they have a commercial lease with the wine bar that's off to the side. Yes. So historically, I'm not sure why that, but I'm happy to delve if you would like to why that arrangement was put in place. I don't know, Trevor or Mr. Smart, if you're any the wiser.
We can bring more information back if you request.
I've sat at the Art Gallery meetings in the last, obviously, few months, and I do know, like I've seen, obviously, their profit and loss, and all I can say is that I think them obviously getting that rent does help them to put on the exhibitions and stuff that they do have there. They don't have enormous amounts of money sitting in their bank. Most of the exhibitions that they do have come at a cost. Some they obviously get subsidised, but yeah, I can say that they're not sitting there with lots of cash in their bank because of the lease that they're getting from Wild Game. Pretty sure I'd be correct in saying that. So the recommendation is there that the Cultural Trust, the lease for a period of 10 years with a right of renewal for 10, and the Mayor and the CEO are authorised to sign. Do I have a mover? Councillor Turner, and a seconder, Councillor Maguire. All those in favour? Carried. Item 14, reports for information. We have 14.1, which is the operations report. Mr. Willsmore.
Thank you. It's in the report. I just wanted to acknowledge and thank the Naracoorte High School, Mr. Flynn, and his students for assisting in planting, doing some planting, some restoration of the creek. So re-established that relationship. So it was positive to see their involvement and the set-up and outdoor education they've got through there. So thank you.
Any questions to Mr. Willsmore on the operations report? Upsetting to see yet again that there has been some vandalism. Is that in that one? Trying to go down. No, it's not that one. It is. Yep. The Caves Trail sign and playground. Just another thing that costs everyone in the long run. That's obviously for members' information. Item 14.2, Planning and Compliance Report. Mr. McCrosty.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Nothing further to add, and happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Mr. McCrosty? Cemetery toilet looks good. And I noticed the chairs at the town hall. I was there on Friday night, so they look good, all nice and finished up the top there.
Deputy Mayor, just a question to Mr. Willsmore. I think I asked him on the bus trip, but I was approached by a citizen who was part of, or wanted to be part of the volunteer for the cemetery. And is that, my understanding is that we called for volunteers and that has closed. Is that something that will come up in a future report, or is there anything to add? Because there are people that are interested, I guess, in volunteering their time to do what they can to upgrade and keep the cemetery looking attractive. I'm assuming that'll probably be a separate report, but I thought I'd just ask because I was asked by someone.
That won't come back to elected members, so they're volunteers, so we'll manage them. So they'll have their first session next Wednesday. So we had 4 people nominate, so we thank them for their help and we'll work with them, but that won't come back to the board. It's only working to the committee. It's only working groups that come back. Thank you.
Information. Item 14.3 is the engagement and community report as written there. Do you have anything else to add to that, Mr. Smart?
No, I have nothing to add, but it's Collins May.
As most of our, pretty much everyone here would be aware, Josie is now the manager of community and engagement. She has recently won that role, so congratulations to Jose. She is a huge asset to us here at council and our community, so congratulations, and I think you're officially taking that role as of next Monday, is that correct? Good job. Does anyone have any questions in regards to that report? No, that is for members' information. Item 14.4, which is the temporary road closures for 22-23. Need to add anything to that, Mr. Willsmore, or is that just as is? And that is for members' information. Any questions on that one? Item 15. Publications, documents, information on bodies, nothing there. Item 16, questions with notice, we do not have any. Item 17 is motions with notice. Councillor Maguire.
Deputy Mayor, can I speak to that before?
Yes.
Just in light of the information that the CEO's added to it, I think that motion we should just let that lapse because of the time frame that we have. I was hoping that I could attempt to put a motion without notice through, and with the discussion we've had tonight, and let the chamber have just further discussion.
Yep. What is that motion without notice? Yep. Have it now.
That council support the Telstra Limestone Coast connectivity project proposal in principle, subject to other funding outcomes or options, due to the updated partnership costs being produced.
No worries. Put that in. Motions without notice now.
Well, it's up to you. Your call on that.
Yep. I'm happy to take that now. We can deal with it now. The information's there. Yep. Yes, that's what you've got. No. No. Can you just,
You will not be able to understand my writing.
Miss Collins? Once it's up there, we will.
There's a fan running here and I can't really hear what's going on. What's been the outcome of this discussion just here now?
He's asked to put a motion without notice, which Mrs. Collins is putting up on the screen. So Councillor Maguire has asked for a motion on notice, which I will accept, that the council support the Telstra Limestone Coast connectivity project proposal in principle, subject to other funding outcomes or options due to the updated partnership costs being provided. Moved by Councillor Maguire. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ross. Councillor Maguire, would you like to speak to that?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. There might be a lot of questions that we'll never get the answers for this. But the window for this opportunity is for today, as the CEO's attached to the report. So we do need to make a decision. I think the good does outweigh the bad. We are the fourth piece of the puzzle. Obviously, Telstra has spoken to the federal government and the state government. And we are the fourth piece that they need the support for this project to go ahead. In light of fires, emergencies, I think $100,000 is not a lot of money. I think everybody in the room has good Telstra coverage, but there is people in our communities, especially the rural sector, that do not. So I am asking that we support the motion.
Councillor Ross, do you wish to?
Just got a couple of points. Look, I do acknowledge, that what the discussion everyone's been saying in regards to, look, it's Telstra. They should be putting their effort into doing it. But after listening tonight as well to Mr. Hayes, it's quite interesting that it's very much an issue out there. Look, I believe we probably haven't really engaged the community enough in regards to this question and this opportunity. We've all had our own discussions with various people around the community. I've had a lot of discussions with people that are actually both in the rural as well as in the town, and there's a fair bit of support I've heard. And given when our first discussion, or not our first discussion, but our recent discussion, coming to light that the CFS have provided a letter of support as well. So I found, that's just, and then to also hear that Mr. Hayes was very much a business person who is in this community and uses, who is very much aware of what's happening and how he supports it as well. It just to me, the concerns have been is that people were concerned that if we create a rod for our own back, if we accept now, well then we're going to be held, we're going to be asked again going forward. Well, to me, that shouldn't be an issue. We can always say no in the future, but I think in this case here, if we say no, and they decide to pull out of some towers out of their project, well, given that we haven't provided some support, I would be, I would believe that we probably would miss out on potentially a tower that could go there. So look, it's all subjective. It's very much that is, but I always believe there's the benefits of what's going to be out there is that there's people there that don't have good phone coverage, and it's important, and it comes down to everyone getting as much as they can access to phone coverage, and safety definitely was an issue that was highlighted. So I would like to see the community consulted, but obviously we're getting a bit late now for it. But if we can just at least keep the door open, and show some intent that we are still willing to listen and potentially be a partner in it, I very much might be able to give us enough time to maybe quickly get out of the community as well to see what their feedback is as well. So, but yeah, I support the motion.
Anyone else wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Grundy.
As Jeff Tate correctly recently stated, there are ongoing attempts to blur the lines of funding and responsibility between the levels of government, and now it seems between the levels of government and private enterprise. Recently we examined a proposal which set out to have Naracoorte Lucindale property owners subsidise Telstra, which is publicly owned. One reason put forward was the necessity for data use. Sky Muster or Starlink, which Mr Hayes has referred to, indicated on the ABC radio in the past fortnight that there are no black spots in the southeast due to satellites catering to this need. Satellite phones and mobile boosters are also available to customers at competitive prices where signal is weak. So we've been asked to, by administration, or by way of Councillor Maguire's motion here without notice, to re-examine it. And just for the benefit of the meeting, I think Councillor Downwood referred to an $8 billion profit. Well, year to date, December 30, 2022, $934 million profit. If we agreed, that's Telstra. If we agreed to this, would that set a precedent outside of Optus? I understand Optus are in the process of aiming for near full coverage in the southeast in the near future. How could we subsidise one publicly owned provider and not others? What would the ACCC's position be on our actions if we were to decline other requests? Would it set a precedent for us to subsidise SA Water, SA Power, or even education and publicly funded health and education? The Commonwealth Government chose to privatise Telstra, which provided essential services. One of the conditions of privatisation was a regional service provision, being acknowledgement that it was not profitable to service regional areas. If the Australian Government wishes to privatise essential services, they cannot expect others to fund the resulting deficiencies. To support this would set a dangerous precedent. Would there be an ongoing expectation of additional funding of towers in the future? While consumers complain of reducing signal, would numerous additional towers be required on an ongoing basis? Would those towers require additional ratepayer funding? Would the proposed 5% or a little less now become 10% once we're on the hook? I suggest Telstra has a social licence whereby, while they profit from built-up areas, there is an expectation that they properly resource their infrastructure everywhere. And so while everyone wants better phone service, I don't believe this concept is in our best interest long term. I don't believe we should be beginning the process of investigating this concept, as this is code for supporting the concept. It should be rejected based on the principle that providing telecommunications is not the responsibility of local government. We should be aware of our core responsibilities and by all means assist in lobbying our federal member and Telstra to provide an improved service to the residents of our council area. In the past fortnight, I've been hearing the morning ABC commentary regarding various council decisions. One texter lamented that Wattle Range had set out to no longer support its local livestock sale yards, while at the same time had agreed to subsidise Telstra to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars, while conversely, Naracoorte Lucindale Council has supported its sale yards and rejected Telstra's request for ratepayers' funds. This is about taxing and spending priorities, nothing more. To support this motion would be disingenuous, given our previous council meeting's decision to reject the request, while it would also serve to provide false hope to those sections in our council and Telstra who wish to see this idea proceed. I suspect the 3 towers would go ahead without our 4 or 5% contribution.
Close if they don't.
Yep, Councillor Goodman, of course.
I support the merit around black spots being addressed in our region, but I don't believe that it is council's project to support financially. I would like to think that we can keep the door open for council to play a role in facilitating, negotiating, advocacy as appropriate. I have also had many conversations with people in the community on this topic, and in the conversations that I've had, whilst everybody wants better connectivity and phone reception, people have also been of the view that this shouldn't be ratepayers' money that goes into supporting it. And it would be my understanding that people in metropolitan places are not being asked to pay through their rates to support this kind of project. So, you know, if people are having problems with their telecommunications, as Councillor Grundy suggested also, I'd be suggesting that they speak to their local state MP or federal members.
I'd like to see a presentation from Optus before we make a decision. We haven't heard from them yet.
No worries. Councillor Turner.
I'll state for the record what I said the first time this came up, that I agree on merit this is a bit of a no-brainer, 100,000+ to get 3 towers, but I disagree on the principle that it's the first step of governments asking local governments to be part of what should be state and federally funded. And I noted some of the language around the table yesterday from our local federal member, Tony Passon, wrapping up and talking about RDA local council and state and federal. Was the language used by himself and the Shadow Treasurer was the language around all 3 levels of government working together. And I just feel that if we set a precedent on this, we're allowing state and federal government, or encouraging them to look at local councils for funding things that have been traditionally been funded previously by either federal or state, which is why I spoke against this initially, and it's why I'm still against this on the principle that I think the principle of asking us to fund something that should not be funded by local council is wrong.
If I can just add to the conversation, please, in that Mr. Hayes earlier mentioned that and he lives in a similar area to myself, that our signals have plummeted, and I'm actually on the edge of a black spot area myself now, where I wasn't 5 years ago. And I think putting in another tower is not going to fix this issue. It's a matter of the service that we've actually had that's deteriorated. And if Telstra can't give us a suitable answer as to why that's happening, I certainly think the council wants to think seriously about supporting them putting in more towers.
I'll close. I know I'm not going to win this argument, but I feel I had to say something. The federal members have been pursuing this issue for years. This is what they've come up with. They've obviously been talking with Telstra, federal, state. So this is the proposal. This is as good as it's going to get. So to say, let's go and talk to a federal member, this is their proposal, basically. Ideally, the principle, I agree, it's not ideal to be supporting big business. It's not our role, but as I said, the good way outweighs the bad. I'd just like to note we are the only council in the southeast that has not gone this next step. Every other council has supported it. Again, I know I'm not going to win it, but one life saved, one fire that has been reported and been able to be got on top of, that's $100,000 well worth spent. So be it. It'll be on our heads.
All right, I will put that motion. The council support the Telstra Limestone Coast connectivity project proposal in principle, subject to other funding outcomes or options due to the updated partnership costs being provided. All those in favour? All those against? The motion is lost. We'll go back to 7.2. The motion from Councillor Maguire that the council pave the area of the council-owned. Oh, okay, thank you.
State what's your interest?
The reason being is I'm part of a group of people that have bought a property right next door to this, so I don't want it to be perceived that we've got an interest in it.
Council paved the area of the council-owned footpath in front of Mitre 10 and Naracoorte truck and bus service on Smith Street, Naracoorte. Would you like to move that way, Councillor Maguire? Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Rayner? Would you like to? Councillor Maguire?
I do understand we are currently in the process of developing a council policy in regards to supporting new and old businesses. Hopefully this will include situations like this, but in the meantime, I think we should be proactive on the situation. We have two businesses that have invested millions of dollars and employ dozens of people within our community. The council-owned land out the front is rubble and weeds at the moment and is a little bit embarrassing. It is the entrance or the avenue into our town and to our main street, and it is seen by hundreds of people a day. I think we should be encouraging and supporting for new businesses like this, just as we've done in Robinson Street in the past, as we've paved around McDonald's in the past, and we have just finished projects on Ormerod Street. Thank you.
Councillor Grundy?
Just previously in the meeting, we've actually rejected the Matna Road concept based on the fact that it was not in line with council policy, and that's all well and good. And I agree with Councillor Maguire's sentiment, and that is that isn't it tremendous to see those businesses invest the way they have and the tremendous job they've done. It just worries me a little bit that this potentially sets a bit of a dangerous precedent as far as people finding their way up the list as far as the hierarchy of where they might ordinarily have sat. Now, I don't know what the answer to that is. Maybe that would be encompassed in the policy. I don't know. But could someone from the staff comment on that concern, please?
Probably haven't got the answers, but as Councillor Maguire has alluded to, we'll come back to council with a development assessment assistance policy, for want of a better name. Sorry, for want of a better name, which will detail how we can assist businesses, whether they be new or existing. But yeah, I haven't got detail of that, what that may look at yet. I haven't got those answers for you.
Just as a question, wouldn't that come under the requirements of the footpaths policy for business within town?
My understanding is there's not a footpath, it's just actually tidying up an area in front of the business. So it's not a footpath, it's just a paved area in front of a business. So doesn't fit into our footpath policy because that's not what it's planned to be. It's taking care of what's council land. That's what I understand from the intention of the motion. So we've got a thin strip of land that's in between the curb and the business boundary. So.
Councillor Turner.
What about this? Look, it's a complicated motion simply because of its timing. I think the merit's well placed. I've just sat in, I've thought of a solution that I'll just pose as a way through this. I drove past today and I noted that particularly the Mitre 10 is quite a thin strip and it's an ugly piece of structure at the moment. Bulls is actually quite wide, the adjoining properties are quite wide footpaths and there are owners of the lands either side. So you set a precedent, but the way through this might be that if we change the motion, that the council did only the Mitre 10 strip as a trial and gained community feedback around that to help formulate a future policy, might be a way forward to get that little piece done in front of Mitre 10. I think if you actually include any property either side of it, you're really stating that our intent is to do all of the strips. And we've got on the run in the corner that they did their own landscaping and that can look untidy too, that little scratchy bit around the corner. I think it sets a precedent if we combine multiple properties in this motion. But we could do one property as a trial as part of community feedback. Otherwise, I think I can't vote for that motion as it stands. I'm just stating my position and suggesting an idea. And that may be at this meeting or a future meeting.
As has been stated by other elected members, the intention of this is good and it is the kind of work that we need to be considering. It would be my strong preference that it gets considered after we have developed the policy around this work so that it can be addressed in the context of that plan. I also note that the curbside on the other side, opposite side of the road, could do with some love and care as well, and so I guess I'd like to be able to understand how new businesses are treated in regard or in comparison to existing businesses in regard to this kind of work.
As I've stated to Councillor Maguire, the merits are good. Maybe it's one of those things that obviously the land next to Mitre 10 has currently been purchased as well. There is going to be more development up along that road, so maybe it might be something that needs to come back again at a later date once things happen up there, but that's just another thought. Do you want to move an amendment?
I'll move an amendment to see whether it gets up or not. I'll move an amendment that the council pave the, whatever you want to describe, the footpath in front of Mitre 10, given it's a significant new business in town, as a trial to gain community feedback towards building a policy around supporting these businesses in the future. As a trial to gain community feedback, as a trial to gain community feedback to help formulate a policy.
Sorry? You're okay with amendment or no? No? Right, you want the other one.
Close the argument.
No, you can.
Just a question. Mr. Smart referred to the fact that the policy would be developed in the future. What are the timelines around that policy being developed on, which relate directly to this matter? That's my question.
It doesn't necessarily, well, it may influence this direct matter, but the policy is about assisting existing and new businesses in any form, so it may relate to this. It would come back to a business approaching council, most likely through that policy, but probably over the next 2 or 3 months, we'll come back to council.
So not a long time.
Hopefully not too much time.
I would need a second, otherwise it's lost.
Is there anyone willing to second Councillor Turner's motion? Councillor Jarwood? So we put the amendment to a vote, which is the council pave the area of council-owned footpath in front of Mitre 10 as a trial to gain community feedback and formulate a policy.
And assist, if we could just assist, something not, the words I used was to assist council to formulate a policy. If Councillor Ireland's happy with that. Downward, sorry.
Yeah, that's fine.
Do I have questions or comment on that amendment? Yep, Councillor Moore.
I'm happy to take on board what Councillor Goodman has said. I think by picking one of the two, it probably creates more problems than it solves. I'll probably support Councillor Grundy's encouragement to get the policy in sooner than later. So I would probably prefer to see both lapse again and just focus on getting a policy.
Do you want to speak, Councillor Goodman? Yep.
Just a question
Yep.
in regard to relevant policy. Is that the same policy we've been discussing about supporting new businesses?
Well, depending on what decision council makes, it would assist a policy development. Yeah. If
You
it,
lose the word relevant.
yeah, just policy. Yeah. You don't need relevant. That's right. It's just a policy. You decide at that time whether it's relevant or not.
I'll make a statement to close if no one else wants to have a comment.
Yep.
My point is that if you want to get feedback from the community, do something. Like if you wanted to make Ormond Street one way, just block it for a month and see what people think about driving up and down. And if you want to get feedback from the community, do something that could be seen as amazing or controversial. And I think if this particular amendment gives you the licence to do one thing for one business, and I think that community feedback we gain from that would assist us in formulating a policy for the future. So that's why I've suggested it.
Okay, so now we vote on the amendment, which is moved by Councillor Turner and seconded by Councillor Downwood. The council paved the area of council-owned footpath in front of Mitre 10 as a trial to gain community feedback and to assist council to formulate a policy. All those in favour? All those against? We have a tie.
Over to you.
I have
Deputy
cast a
Mayor.
vote. I'm going to, thanks guys. I'm going to vote against, only due to the discussion that has been around the table that we do maybe look at formulating a policy first, and then we can look into whether or not this is something that we do.
That's lost. Now you go back to the original motion. You have a vote on that.
Okay, so now we go back to the original motion. Thanks guys. Chucking all these hairy ones in on my first meeting. Appreciate it. So now we go back to the first motion that has been moved by Councillor Maguire and seconded by Councillor Rayner, that the council pave the area of council-owned land-owned footpath in front of Mitre 10 and council Naracoorte truck and bus service on Smith Street, Naracoorte. All those in favour? All those against? The motion is lost. It's a long way around. Thanks everyone. That was a nice learning curve. Cheers. Yeah, we got through all that. All right, that's fine. Good. Okay, 17.3, Councillor Maguire. Would you like to, oh yeah, sorry, everybody get Councillor Ross back in. I say, is it one here? Yeah, I'm going to turn that off.
The outcome of that is we'll continue to develop the policy for consideration.
With community feedback. community feedback.
Afterwards.
Okay, so item 17.3, the Council Administration provide a report for the July 2023 Council meeting on the possible use of an electronic information sign to be used as a communication tool within the township of Naracoorte. Councillor Maguire, would you like to move that way? Would you like to speak to it? Do I seconder for that one? Councillor Goodman, do you want to speak?
Thank you. I don't like my chances. 2 down, 1 to go. I put this motion only up for discussion. It's not a priority, but it might be something council wishes to explore. The benefits of communicating like this to the community are proven in other councils. It's a way of advertising upcoming council meetings, consultation, but can also be used as a way to advertise many other events in our district. For example, Lucindale Field Days, Naracoorte Swap Meet, Mini Jumbo Cup, the Taste Festival, future road closures or works, Naracoorte Swap Meet, the swimming lake, the caves, Ball Lagoon, etc. It can also be used for non-profit groups for upcoming events. I'm only asking for a report on costings and potential location, and if admin believe it could work here after their findings.
Thanks, Councillor Maguire. Has anyone got any? Yep, Councillor Quinn.
I think this is a really good idea, and for the reasons that Councillor Maguire has outlined. Through our strategic planning process, we also heard from the community that they were seeking alternate ways of receiving information, and I think that this might have been an idea that was put forward through that as well, so I think it'd be good to pick up on that. I'd like also that in investigating this, options for portable, movable kind of electronic signs be considered so that it can be something that is used in different parts of the district as well.
Would like to speak to the motion before we put it to a vote? Okay, so I put the motion as written there. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. You got one.
That was hard work.
Item 18 is questions without notice. Do I have any questions without notice? And item 19, do I have any other motions without notice? Nope. Thank you. We will go into our matters to be considered in confidence. Thanks to the Public Gallery Media. Adam, thank you.